Alan Ferguson joined the Marine Corps in February of 1942, soon after the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor. Only 18 at the time, Ferguson was afraid the war would be over before he had a chance to fight. But that wasn't the case, as Joan Hallmark shows us in tonight's Freedom Fighters.
This was just before I joined the service.
Alan Ferguson was 18 and a senior in Gaston High School when the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor. 2 months after the attack, he joined the Marines, receiving the princely salary of $21 a month.
Back then, Japanese were very successful in their attacks in moving from one island to the next, so they had to stop them.
Stop them we did, but not before they had gobbled up much of the Pacific.
It was one of our first victories, actually.
After the Philippines, Netherlands Indies, and Bataan had fallen to the Japanese, the Allied victory at Midway in June of '42 and the Marine landing on Guadalcanal in August finally ended Japanese eastward expansion, but not without a heavy cost.
I was just 18, 19 years old, and you don't realize what death is about, but after you hit Guadalcanal, you realize that it was serious. We lost a lot of good boys.
In addition to heavy fighting, malaria and other diseases unfamiliar to American troops took their toll.
Of course, it rained almost every day, and the countryside was filled with mosquitoes, and a lot of fellas contacted malaria.
Did you lose a lot of friends on Guadalcanal?
Yes, I did.
The battle on Guadalcanal raged for weeks as the Marines fought to overcome deeply entrenched Japanese forces.
Japanese were back in caves, and they had to use flamethrowers to get them out. Even today, I can still smell that burnt flesh. It was not pleasant, to say the least, and much suffering and sickness I've never seen before. But I was young and couldn't get sick. So I stayed until the island was secured.
After the hard-fought victory on Guadalcanal, Ferguson was sent to the invasion of Green Island, a small island, but one where the Japanese were entrenched just as deeply in fortified caves.
President Franklin D. Roosevelt issued a presidential citation, which you'll notice here, and with 2 battle stars. One of them was for Guadalcanal, and the other one was for the battle on Green Island.
For a short period of time in 1944, Ferguson was able to return to Texas and marry his high school sweetheart Doris before he was sent back to the Pacific for what would have been the biggest battle of all.
Of course, President Truman came along then with an atomic bomb, and 2 of them, in fact. I applauded President Truman for making that decision because it saved many American lives.
Alan Ferguson returned home when the war ended in 1946 and attended Tyler Junior College and Baylor University. He practiced law in Longview for 42 years, ever proud of his service to his country.
I'm really glad of the 4 years I spent in the Marine Corps. Semper Fidelis.
In Longview for Freedom Fighters, Joan Hallmark, KLTV 7 News.
If you or someone you know served our country in combat, we'd love to hear from you. Just send your information to Freedom Fighters at 105 West Ferguson, Tyler, Texas 75702.